With cyber attacks on the rise, protecting your data security is more important than ever. So why is Congress considering a bill that puts your credit card data at greater risk of being hacked and exposed to foreign networks? The Durbin-Marshall credit card bill shifts billions in consumer spending to less secure payment networks, all so that corporate megastores can make bigger profits. Don't let Durbin-Marshall steal your data. Visit electronicpaymentscoalition.org and tell your senators to oppose the Durbin-Marshall credit card bill.
Ladies and gentlemen, your attention, please.
Just a catching strays over here.
You're in for a hell of a show.
Keep the faith, hold the line, and own the libs.
It's time for our main event.
Welcome back to the Ruthless Variety Program, and welcome to Indianapolis Motor Speedway, which plays host this Memorial Day to the greatest spectacle in racing, the Indianapolis 500. I am Michael Duncan, joining me comfortably Smug, and John Ashbrook. How we doing?
Man, I am so thrilled to be here, Michael. And I think a lot of people are wondering, wait a minute, why are they at the Indianapolis 500? Of course, people who love the show know that Michael Duncan is a native son of Indianapolis.
Yeah, I've spent many Mays of my youth here at the track, and it truly is the greatest spectacle in racing. The largest single-day sporting event in the world. It's more than just a race. You've got community groups, you've got college bands, you've got our military men and women, celebrating what makes America great here in Indy.
Well, it's so great to be here for the 108th running of the Indianapolis 500, 2.5-mile track. It's the first time, Smug, you ever laid eyes on it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is, the scope of it is mind-blowing. The scale of this place, I mean, it's a racetrack, but it is enormous, enormous. And, contrary to popular belief, I have to eat my words. When we're flying in, there are a couple buildings taller than 2 stories in Indianapolis. It's a beautiful town. It's been incredible.
It was very funny on the plane, though, because when we were flying over, Smug was like, hey, Duncan, look, I see it's all flat land and maybe 1 or 2 one-story buildings. And then all of a sudden the skyline comes into view and he shuts the shuttle.
Yeah, he's taking photos of farmland, and then as soon as he sees the building, shuts it.
But I mean, it's a beautiful town, and Duncan was explaining to me, I didn't know this. I guess one of Indiana's largest exports is limestone. So you go downtown and it is beautiful. All the buildings are limestone. They have all this ornate carving in there. They had a monument to World War II. Just beautiful, beautiful town.
Yeah, nobody does hospitality like Indy in the month of May. I mean, this is a city famous for hosting conventions. It's the home of the NCAA, so they're used to welcoming crowds from all across the country and the world, and never is that on better display than now with the Indy 500.
Yeah, it really is a special race, and I know that we get into a lot of back and forth of what's better, IndyCar or NASCAR, and hopefully that argument is settled today, because if you look behind us, right behind us is pit road. Over there is the start-finish line, the famous bricks that we've all kissed at one point in our lives, and I mean, what a day to be here.
And, I mean, what a lineup we have for today's show.
Yeah, we really do. So we've got Jim Banks, Congressman Jim Banks. He's running for Senate, and he's going to come in. And then we also have a very special treat, little Al Unser Jr., who won this race in 1992 and 1994, comes from a family of people who won the race, and, very, very lucky to have him.
And it's going to be an incredible race. I think Team Penske has 1, 2, and 3 in the race on Memorial Day. And we also have Kyle Larson from NASCAR, who's doing what many have done. Tony Stewart did it in the past, NASCAR guys who try to come over and win the Indianapolis 500. That's what this race means to racing, that you've got the best in the world in NASCAR coming here to try to win.
Yeah. Man, what a special race, and I'm really glad that we could be here to celebrate in your hometown, old man.
Yeah, and if you are a fan of racing, I highly recommend you go to the YouTube comments and tell us who you think is going to win this race. Because we got some betting to do, and I'd love to get some inside tips. We'll make sure to read all of those. But we don't just have the interviews. We're going to be doing news of the day. We got some very interesting news out of Iran, and we're going to be talking inflation. We're going to be talking about all that right after this.
I've told you about my friends at Americans for Prosperity. The ones who bought the Bidenomics.com website right from under Joe Biden's nose. They're the largest, most effective grassroots organization in the country. Following up on their Bidenomics coup, AFP is now launching a national Bidenomics tour to expose the weak Biden economy and hold the lawmakers who voted with Biden accountable. Americans will hear the facts and figures the mainstream media won't tell you about. How Joe Biden and his allies ignored warnings their policies would trigger runaway prices. How inflation is killing homeownership in the American dream, and how workers keep falling behind. And if the Bidenomics.com website is anything to go by, you can be sure it will be a lot of fun, too. To check out when the AFP Bidenomics tour is coming to your area, go to Bidenomics.com. That's Bidenomics.com.
Okay, let's get right into it. Smug, you saw some really interesting news in the Wall Street Journal about inflation. Why don't you just start us there?
That's right. So this chart kind of took off online. If you could get it up there on the screen, folks, and for those who aren't on YouTube. So this is a chart that's showing household net worth since the start of each presidency, comparing Trump's presidency to Biden's presidency. And the charts that I'm sure most people have already seen shows, you know, household net worth has gone up. Well, the chart you haven't seen is the one the Journal put up, which adjusts for inflation, which is when you start to see that under Biden, it's like American household net worth takes a nosedive.
Right.
Which is why you see all these articles that journalists are pushing about, oh, the economy's great. Why aren't Americans feeling it? This is why. Because all the information that they've been putting out there, it doesn't adjust for inflation. What's the number one issue this election for people? It's the economy, it's inflation. So essentially they've been blindfolding the public, and this chart, I mean, I'm so happy the Journal put it out there. It should be put on every voter's radar. It should be on bumper stickers.
Yeah, I would love to get that on bumper sticker.
Yeah,
Because this is your net worth. This is what has happened under 4 years of Biden, as opposed to, it was like a rocket ship if you look at this under the Trump presidency, and that is why Americans feel like this economy is terrible, because it is.
It really should be put on bumper stickers because it explains so clearly what regular people are feeling. And nobody living in Indiana trying to raise a family needed to see a chart in the Wall Street Journal to know that things are difficult, that the economy is not what it should be, that groceries are super expensive, that gas prices seem to be going up, that everything in their lives that they used to be able to afford, somehow now they can't. And one thing changed. Joe Biden became president, and he ruined the economy. There's a chance to change that this fall, and I think a lot of people in this state are going to be voting for Donald Trump.
Yeah, it kind of goes to the whole heart of the problem that the Democrats have right now, is they're trying to tell people everything's good. The stock market's up. Look at this, 40,000 on Dow, remember?
Yeah.
But the reality is that because of inflation, net worth of all these families has actually gone negative in the last 4 years. That's a tough thing to just message out of if you don't have an answer for it.
And I mean, that's the thing, is it really feels like the media and Dems especially have been gaslighting the American public. How they've kept trying to tell them, no, don't believe your lying eyes. You know, what you feel isn't true. Everything is great. The economy is terrific. Give us 4 more years. And so, I mean, it just made it so clear in this chart that this is why it feels bad. It's when you adjust for inflation, which is what every American has had to do. We've had to adjust for inflation. In last quarterly report McDonald's put out, they said that working class Americans can no longer afford our restaurant. You can't afford a hamburger and fries in this country, and we've been told, oh, the economy is going terrific. I mean, that's the thing, is it feels bad because it is adjusted for inflation, and I want every voter for election day to see this chart. We need to make sure everyone knows this is why it feels
Well, and
bad.
it's not just the core CPI. It's not just, food and gas. You're already looking at things like 8-9% mortgage rates, right? Credit card debt, again, set a new record of debt held by Americans. So people are feeling it in their pocketbook, and they've never been in a worse position to buy a home, to pay off a credit card. And that's why people feel like they're living in an economic precarious position right now.
That's it right there.
Well, we have more than that.
That's right.
Which is the incredible news out of Iran. I don't know if you guys followed this at all, but the president of Iran and the foreign minister, along with a few others, were traveling back from Azerbaijan in a helicopter in heavy fog in the mountains, and it crashed. And Iran state media is now confirming that the president and foreign minister both died in that crash.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things when you're doing a podcast that's taped and played a couple days later, you're a little bit behind the news, but this is something that everybody's talking about on Twitter. Everybody is focused on. It just really captured the attention of the world in a way that nobody has really forgotten. A lot of these Israeli accounts on Twitter are just crushing the Iranians for why would you even fly in fog that thick?
Yeah.
And, sometimes you don't know, to your point, Smug, that you were making earlier, sometimes you don't know what pictures and what videos are real and what's made up, what's AI generated. But it's certainly getting a lot of conversation online.
Yeah, so, I mean, the funny thing is, if you see, like, the breakdown of the story as it unfolded, is like, first you hear, okay, the helicopter made a hard landing. Iranian state media is like, they made a hard landing in a mountainous
in the
region.
mountains, in the fog, yeah.
And they're like, everything's okay, though, guys. And then they're like, okay, we can't send rescue workers right now. There's a lot of fog, but everything is fine. And then there was this report that I saw that they said, we're going to have to get there fast because this is a region that has a lot of wolves and bears.
Yeah.
And I saw that, and I just lost my shit. Because it's like, okay, imagine if you follow the original story, and it was just a hard landing, right? And now you're the Iranian president, and now you're in the mountains. And now you hear like a wolf howl in the distance.
And it's like pea soup fog. You can't see 10 feet in front of you, and you just start to see the shadow of bears and wolves. Frankly, I would rather die in the crash.
So like as it goes on, it's like this is just getting worse and worse and worse. And they're having to go out and put a statement that like, well, actually things are a little worse than we told you. Things are a little worse than we told you. And then eventually they went until it's like, 1 a.m. and they're like, guys, he's dead.
Yeah. Yeah, and like you said, Israeli accounts were having a field day with this on Twitter, and for good reason. I mean, this guy's the butcher of Tehran. Mm-hmm. He has murdered, executed thousands and thousands of dissidents in that country, and he's the reason that they fund these proxy wars around the Middle East to try to destroy Israel. So
yeah, like you said, it's important to also note that the foreign minister was also killed in the crash, and a lot of foreign policy people that I follow were discussing this of kind of like at the top of the food chain in Iran is you've got the Ayatollah, and then you had the president, and then that was like the succession plan that like if when the Ayatollah passes away, it'd be the president, and then if the president dies, then it would be the foreign minister. Now it's like, so who's running the place, guys?
Yeah.
I mean, that also is a situation where, I mean, if you're like a military leader in Iran, right? Right now you're thinking, well, why not me? I could be that guy, in charge. And also there's this discussion of like who these people were, because like you mentioned, the president, the foreign minister, they're the ones who were sending money to these groups, these proxy, terrorists, like Soleimani, who Trump took out, who their sole focus was how many U.S. troops we can kill. So, Trump turned Soleimani into salsa, and, it seems like the same thing ended up happening to these two guys.
Yeah. Well, we got a little bit of lighter news, a little variety. You want to get to that?
Absolutely.
Sure. So if you watched the PGA Championship at Valhalla this weekend, the big news, Scottie Scheffler got arrested when he was in his PGA courtesy car trying to get in for his tee time on Friday. I guess it was a miscommunication between Scottie and this officer who was trying to...
I saw the video of it. It wasn't a miscommunication. Scottie was being a jerk.
Yeah.
Like you see the video, he's trying to be like, I'm a big shot guy, right?
He's the number one golfer in the world.
So I don't care if you're the number one golfer in the world. You do what the cop says. We've said this a million times. I don't care who you are. Just do what the damn cop says. That's how you end up not getting shot. That's how you end up not causing problems. And this guy's Mr. Big Shot rolls up and he's like, don't you know who I am?
Well, you don't have to know who he is because he's in a marked PGA courtesy car.
That's the thing is, I'm in the big boy car.
To listen to Scottie's side of the story, he thought he was obeying the cops. So I think it was sort of a melee, and there were multiple people giving him multiple different conflicting directions, and it was dark, and I think he just made a mistake.
No, I think the problem here is that Smug clearly supports lawfare against Christian conservatives like Scottie Scheffler. That's exactly what the problem is right now. The latest news is that they're going to be dropping these charges against Scottie Scheffler.
Of course they are, because that's how
that's
it is.
A victory.
When you're a rich guy, they let you do what you want. Clearly, like the officer is probably going to have to face some shit because he'd made the right call. He's trying to keep everybody safe, and you've got this jerk who's Mr. Big Shot, who's like, "Don't you know who I am? Drop those charges."
Well, he just won the Masters for the second time in 3 years, so he is kind of a big shot.
Well, every American has to follow the law, and even this jerk, I wish they'd thrown the book at him. It's sad they didn't tase him. That'd been fun to see in the footage. What are you gonna do?
Yeah. All right. Well, we got to get to these interviews. We got fantastic interviews.
Before we get to the interviews, Duncan, can you just tell everybody your favorite memory from this track? I mean, this is probably the 10th, 15th time you've been here.
I think my favorite memory from the track would have to be getting to physically touch the bricks, kiss the bricks.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, those bricks are the history of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
Yeah.
You know, from the beginning of this, 108 years ago. I mean, this track, this race has survived world wars, you know, Great Depression, the whole revolutionary changes to the sport itself, competition with NASCAR, with F1. And so the perseverance of this course is sort of in those bricks right out there behind us. And so I think that will always be my greatest memory here at the track.
Yeah, a lot of people probably don't realize that the blacktop is cut at the start-finish line, and there are actual bricks inlaid into the asphalt, which is kind of a special thing that, I mean, people from Indianapolis know. And I'll just tell you, my memories of this place are very different from yours because I always watched the race on television. I mean, I came to practice day once with my dad and came to a couple of races with you, but growing up watching this race every year on ABC, listening to Paul Page and Gary Gerald, Dr. Jerry Punch and Jack Arute and those guys sort of bring it to life every single May. And I'll never forget, this is one of the reasons why I love that we're having Al Unser Jr. I'll never forget that afternoon when Little Al won in 1992, and my brother's jumping up and down in the living room, and my dad could not have been happier. And I'm just telling you, this race has a very special place in the hearts of a lot of guys who grew up in the Midwest, and so I'm really glad we could be here today.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
All right, well, let's get to our first interview here. Congressman Jim Banks and future senator from the great state of Indiana. I want to welcome to the program the next senator from the great state of Indiana, Congressman Jim Banks. How are you?
Hey, good to be here. Welcome to the racetrack.
It's great to be here. I wonder, like, as a guy who grew up in Indiana, come from a small town, like, does it ever lose the magic? Because, like, for me, this is just all so surreal.
Yeah, so much history
Right.
here. I grew up in the northern part of the state, the Fort Wayne area, and my memories of the race are listening to it on the radio.
Yeah.
And you can be here in person and watch the race, but listening to those races, especially in the 80s, when I was a kid on the radio, there's nothing like it. But then to come here and be at the racetrack, it keeps getting better. You know, Roger Penske has really taken the racetrack over the last 3 or 4 years and made it even better than what it was before. Some people say even saved it. It's a special place. It's a special place for Hoosiers, and it's great to have the show. You guys, the fellas, to the racetrack. I mean, what a great place to do a show.
Yeah, I mean, it's magical out here. What I want to talk about first, you've done a terrific job in Congress, one of the most reliable conservative members we've had. I'm excited to get you in the Senate. Specifically, this cycle, voters say the number one issue is the economy. I'm of the opinion, sometimes I get flack from the guys, that senators tend to be more out of touch. You know, you hear that this guy's worth $100 million. So it's refreshing to have someone self-made, actually came from a small town, served in the military. Can you tell a little bit about yourself to our listeners?
Well, I wish I was worth $100 million.
That would hurt.
But I'm not. My dad was a factory worker. He made axles. I mean, the automotive industry is really important to Indiana, especially in the northern part of the state, Fort Wayne. We're not far from Detroit. We have a huge GM plant in Fort Wayne where they make Silverados. And so that's my heritage, where I came from. My mom was a cook in a nursing home all of her working life. And when I was born, we lived in a trailer park. We didn't come from a lot. I have 2 younger brothers, and I remember my mom and dad talking about the American dream. You know, they came from working class, blue collar families as well. And the American dream for mom and dad was that my 2 brothers and I would grow up and have a little bit something more than what they did, from the trailer park to beyond their wildest imagination, that one of their sons would grow up and run for office.
Yeah.
And I served in local government. I served at the State House, in Congress, first in my family to go to college, proud to serve in the military, wear the uniform. So mom and dad are very proud. To them, that's the American dream. My dad is a retired union factory worker who voted Democrat all of his life because he thought the Democrats were the party of the working people, right? Now he knows that that's completely false, or at least there's been a transformation in American politics, very different today, where obviously the elites of the Democrat Party have taken their party over the cliff. They don't represent my mom and dad or working class values, working class people. And so my dad's a Trump Republican, and what you think of where a lot of Hoosiers come from, you know, working class people. And that's where I come from too. I mean, my wife and I, we have 3 daughters. We don't have a lot, but we're very proud of what we do have. And to your point, running for the United States Senate, which is has become on both sides an institution where you have very wealthy people. They don't shop at Walmart like I do.
Yeah.
They don't feel the effects of inflation, going to the grocery store and paying twice as much for a dozen eggs or for a gallon of milk. They don't feel it as much. We do.
Yep.
Amanda and I feel it. I mean, another example, during COVID, shut down schools and send kids home. And my wife and I work, and we can't afford full-time daycare for our kids. So I remember during COVID wondering, why don't most congressmen and senators feel what Amanda and I are feeling, that this is a total raw deal for most of America. It was like they were so out of touch they didn't understand that most people can't afford to have a nanny come to their house and take care of their kids, or allow my wife and I to go to work and not be straddled by the effects of something like lockdowns and shutdowns and all of the COVID mandates. So I don't know that it makes me unique or special, but going to the Senate and being able to represent real people, and in this case Hoosiers, who they feel the effects of what's going on in this economy. They know that Bidenomics is making life a lot harder for them. They know they're paying more for rent or for their mortgage, interest rates, more at the grocery store, more for gas. And they know that our country can't keep going down this track, that we got to do something different and do it fast. If that makes me special or different, I hope it just means that I can represent the people who elect me to go to Washington.
Well, I don't think it
so.
necessarily
I think it makes it special, and I hope you do get there for that reason.
It's not just that it's special; it's that it is so rare. Back to your whole point on lockdowns. You had these elites living in New York City who might have a nanny who that wasn't a big inconvenience for them, or they're going to DoorDash all their food. They never have to go to the grocery store. Any of those sorts of things, and it's sort of our elites in this country on everything from lockdowns to inflation have lost touch with what the American experience is for the middle class in this country. And that's the thing that is so scary about, so many in elected government right now. And I was wondering if maybe you could talk more about what you're hearing from the voters as you're traveling the state.
Yeah, they're fed up. I mean, from watching what's going on TV every day, the Trump the what's going on in the courtrooms and trying to knock out Trump, because obviously he's headed back to the White House and they're trying to block him from doing it. Just completely ignoring the facts of what's going on the ground, of how people are feeling. They know they're not better off than what they were 4 years ago. So what I hear on the campaign trail all over the state is that people are desperate to get Donald Trump back in the White House, and desperate for, they don't care about Republicans or Democrats. Just put working people first. Put the principles back in place that Donald Trump fought for 4 years, and make life better for working class people. So, but I think this is an important moment for the Republican Party. I've written about this. I've talked about this for when Trump was in office, when Trump left office. The Republican Party has to remain the party of working class values, not go back to the elite Wall Street, corporate America Republican Party that we were before Trump. We have to be the when we talk about America first. I know it sounds like sounds like a generic term, but what America first means to working class people like my dad, retired union factory worker who voted Democrat all of his life. What it means to him is trade policies that put America first, immigration policies that put American workers first, foreign policy that puts American workers first. When being tough on China, if the Republican Party remains the tough on China party, that means that we're not taking the page from the Wall Street playbook and selling our jobs out to China. That's how we keep working class Hoosier voters who were used to voting Democrat before, union steel workers in the northern part of our state, factory workers like my dad, farmers, small business people all over the state, the people who fill the stands at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. They want the Republican Party to be the party that represents their values, and Republicans have to understand that, like we didn't understand it before, and keep the Republican Party cemented there. I think that's really important.
Yeah, and I think this race is so much more than a race. And to your point of who are the men and women who are going to be filling these stands, working class, middle class Hoosiers who love racing. But the race is a celebration of America in so many ways. You know, the festivities around the Indianapolis 500, the community groups involved, the men and women of our armed services. You got college bands, you got high school bands, you got every group under the sun, coming out here to celebrate together as a community. There's a civic pride aspect to the month of May in Indianapolis that, I think I wanted to explain to our listeners, because I get crazy about this race, and until you're here and you see the spectacle, it truly is the greatest spectacle, you don't really understand it.
Yeah, but remember what it's about too. It's Memorial Day weekend, and what the racetrack does to support veterans. As a veteran myself, there's something very special about it, and this is true too. I mean, when I'm campaigning around the state, I've been talking about the difference between Republicans and Democrats. It used to be that they're for more government, we're for less government. We're the pro-life, pro-family party. They're the pro-abortion party. We support strong border policies. They support open border policies. But when it comes to, I think there's something that's happened over the past few years in America and in American politics, where we are the pro-America party. The Republicans are the patriotic party. We believe that America is the greatest country in the history of the world, and the Democrats don't anymore. And what happens here at this racetrack when we celebrate our country, celebrate veterans, that's what it's all about. That's what makes the race really special. That's why I love it more than anything of all.
Yeah. What are you looking for here on Sunday? Got Larson in from NASCAR, who's I think he's in the 5th spot. Penske's at the top of the field. I think it's going to be a very exciting race.
Yeah, I love Roger Penske. Yeah. I love what he's done here. I love what he stands for. I was at the White House when Trump was. Every year, Trump would always have the championship winner come to the White House, and because I'm from Indiana and President Trump liked me, he would invite me. So the last time he did it, Penske came and he got up on the stage. It was live cameras and celebrating Team Penske. And Penske brought the executives. He brought the crew team. He had the whole spectrum of Team Penske. And President Trump got up on the podium and he said, "I love Roger Penske. I know things about Roger Penske that no one else knows about Roger Penske." And Penske turns white, and you kind of saw him shaking his head. But then the coolest thing happened. When Trump was in the White House, I can't wait for this again. Trump always welcomed. He understood the White House was the people's. It was the people's White House, not just his house. And he looked at Team Penske and he said, "You guys want to go see the Lincoln bedroom?" And I saw the Secret Service guys shake their head. "We can't do this. We weren't prepared for this." And the president said, "No, I'm taking." I mean, we're talking like some of the rugged, like crew guys, like the mechanics, and probably the highlight of their life. So, and then he pointed at me and a couple of other congressmen, "Come along." And so we went up into the Lincoln bedroom with Roger Penske, and you could tell that President Trump he reveres Roger Penske, and was talking about how we were in the Lincoln bedroom, and there was in the treaty room next door, portrait of General Grant, President Grant, and Trump was comparing Roger Penske to General Grant. When Roger Penske's coming, it's like when General Grant with his troops are coming. Like people are scared of Roger Penske. So all that to say, I love Roger Penske. I love what he stands for, what he's done for not just the racetrack, but Indianapolis, and what he's done for racing. So I'm always cheering for him. And I think he has all three of the top pole positions. So a dominant Team Penske performance in pole position here. So we'll see what it looks like. But at the end of the day, it's all about a great day. The attendance is up, the best attendance in 20 years at the racetrack. So way above the numbers last year. And there's a lot to be excited about the race on Sunday.
So we always do 3 questions here on the Ruthless Variety Program. These are important questions to our audience, and I can't wait to hear your answers. The first question is, if you could plan your last meal on Earth, what would it be?
Oh, my gosh. I love the McGriddle breakfast sandwich at McDonald's. I can answer this. I've answered this question for you guys before, and it's probably different every time you ask me, but if it's my last breakfast meal, it's going to be the McGriddle breakfast sandwich. Yeah. So I only have like 2 or 3 of them a year, but they're pretty damn good.
They are very good.
Yeah.
They are very good.
I'll leave it with that.
Okay, so maybe your answer will change on this one too. But blue sky, you could do anything with your life, turn back the clock. Not involved in politics. You're not running for United States Senate. What would you do? Would you get in one of these race cars out here?
And it doesn't have to be realistic. Like Ted Cruz said he'd be a basketball player, so it's
I'll be
truly
a race car driver. I mean, here we are. Could you imagine how much fun that would be?
Yes.
I mean, you guys are gonna talk to one of the most famous race car drivers in the world here in a minute.
Yeah.
How much fun would that be? I had Mario Andretti stop by my office the other day. It was like the biggest pinch me moment ever in my office, talking about a political issue that Team Andretti is involved with in racing, that we're going to bat for him. And how can you say no to Mario Andretti? But to be a race car driver, to get in that car, and sometimes my wife complains that I act like a race car driver when we're driving. So that's my answer today.
Nice. Okay, so then the last one, thrill of victory or agony of defeat?
Yeah, the agony of defeat. I mean, would drive me, I think, more than the thrill of victory. And you kind of, as a political analogy, I mean, I've never lost a race. Mm-hmm. So I just got through a Senate primary. We won the Republican nominee in the state of Indiana. What a huge honor from a great state to be the Republican nominee, have a chance to be a United States senator, to come from where I came from, growing up in a trailer park, the son of a factory worker, and to go on to be a United States senator. That is so cool of an opportunity. I'm very proud of. So I just got through that win, but we'll see what comes next. And I think that this is a tough question. I answered it for you guys before, and I remember Holmes giving me a hard time about my answer the first time. But I think more than anything, the agony of defeat. There's nothing worse than that drives me to succeed and perform, and very proud of what I get and what I'm able to do.
Yeah. If people want to help your campaign, where do they go?
Well, go to banksforsenate.com is my website. Find us online. It's an expensive endeavor. If you go back in time a little bit, just a quick history lesson. 6 years ago, the Senate seat that I'm running for was held by a Democrat, Joe Donnelly. Mike Braun, who's going to be the next governor of Indiana, beat Joe Donnelly in what was a $100 million race. This cycle, it's all about winning back the White House, getting Donald Trump back in the White House, but he's going to need backup in the Congress, a Senate majority, and we got to grow this painful one-seat majority in the House into a governing majority. And we got to have leaders in the House and the Senate who are aligned with President Trump in that America First vision, and that's why we have to have a Republican majority. So keeping the Indiana Senate seat Republican is the first piece toward building a Republican majority in the Senate. And remembering how expensive that was 6 years ago, it's important that we do our part to lock this down and cruise to victory in November, win the Senate seat here, and I'll be very proud to have the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, we need you in the Senate ASAP. Yeah. That's going to be a hell of a day.
Yeah. Can't wait.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Good to be with you.
Thanks so much.
Fellas, that was a great interview. And Indiana is going to be really lucky to have a guy like him in the Senate because he comes from a small town, regular background, working class background, and that's the sort of thing that I think we need more of in the Senate. It's a perspective that just will go a long way to evening things out in that chamber.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is, talking to him, he's a regular guy who gets it. He gets what voters are thinking. He gets what the working man is thinking because that's him, and it's refreshing to see that, especially in the Senate. We've got people, we had like Dianne Feinstein. You've got these fossil billionaires who are in the Senate. It's good to have just a regular American who gets it.
I mean, this is a guy who had to leave the state Senate to be deployed to Afghanistan. That is a different perspective than many of those people like you were mentioning, Smug. But that's not the only perspective we have here today. We're going to get, I think, arguably the greatest perspective on racing we could hope to get in this episode, and that is Little Al Unser Jr.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are very, very lucky to be joined by IndyCar royalty. There are a lot of big names in this sport, but none as familiar with Victory Lane as Unser. And fortunately, we have a guy here who comes from a family that won this race 9 times. The Andrettis only won it once, in case you're scoring at home.
Yeah.
This guy won it twice. Al Unser Jr., what a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, John. Thanks for having us on.
Well, I can't believe that we're here with you. And the first thing I'd like to do, if it's okay with you, I want to take you down memory lane back to 1992.
I love it.
When you held off Scott Goodyear to win this race. What was going through your mind that day?
Just everything. I mean, just those last few laps, it was all about keeping Scott behind me. And, I guess the growing up, the thing was, on that last lap, the leader of the race, they're listening to every bolt and so on and feeling every crack in the road. I had none of that. I was just concentrating on being as smooth as I could, going as fast as I could, and keeping Scott behind me. That was the main concentration. And so, the car got a little bit loose on me in turn 4, and that made me get out of the throttle just a blip. And that allowed Scott to have that run on me. And, I honestly, I thought as I came off of turn 4 and I saw the run that he had on me for the checkered, I thought I had lost another one, but it all turned out really well.
Yeah,
so,
but you didn't. It's a great memory. One of your greatest memories is also one of ours. Michael and I will actually we rewatch that maybe once a year.
Yeah, good.
Yes, sometimes we'll be in an Uber home from the bar at night, and we'll just pull up the audio of the radio call of that race.
Bob Jenkins.
Yes, just incredible stuff.
Yeah.
So you win that race. For our listeners and viewers, can you capture the experience of being a winner of the Indianapolis 500?
Well, for me, it was just a childhood dream come true.
Yeah.
It took me a long time to win this race. I had already won the championship, the IndyCar championship, and I won a lot of races prior to the 500, and it was the one that just kept getting away from me. I had a great race in 1989 with Emerson Fittipaldi, and the two of us got together down in turn 3 at the end of the race, and I honestly thought I was never going to win the 500, that it was just kept eluding me, and so when we finally did it, Michael Andretti in 92 had the whole field covered. It was his race. Scott Goodyear and I, the last 50 laps or so, were having a great race, but it was for second, and so no one really saw it until Michael had an engine failure, and with like 12 or 15 to go, and then that put it on Scott and I, and it was just I was in a 6-point harness seatbelt. My butt was not in the seat for those last 10 laps. Okay, I mean, I was standing up in that cockpit.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
What's it like to drink the milk? That whole experience.
Everybody asked me that, you know, and the milk is super cold.
Yeah.
And super good.
Yeah.
It is the best glass of milk that you've ever had. I've ever had, for sure.
Yeah.
Both times.
Yeah.
Both times. It was good, yeah.
What'd your dad say to you when you came off the track? I mean, he was, of course, what we're talking about here in 1992, one of the most iconic images in sports, because everybody who watches ABC Wild World of Sports is familiar with the thrill of victory. We talk about that on our show a lot.
Right.
And the picture of you winning and drinking the milk and talking about what that meant.
Yep.
What'd your dad say to you?
Well, actually, my dad was in the race, and he finished third. He was right there racing all day with us and so on. And when I saw him for the first time, we were in the pace car to go on the victory lap, and he was down pit lane, and his arms were just so big. He wanted to give me a hug, and his arms were just so big. And it was cold that day, so he had a jacket on.
Yeah.
And so on. And so, but yeah, I mean, just super proud of me and all that kind of stuff. And I was just super proud of the whole family, you know. So.
Yeah. And this really is the biggest race, because you owned the track at Long Beach for years and years until you won this one.
Yeah.
And this one's just so special.
This one is the race that means everything, you know. I mean, I can't say enough how important this race is. And, you know, the IndyCar is named after the Indy 500. It's the IndyCar series. And so we drive Indy cars, and that's because of the Indy 500 and so on. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, us and our buddies have this ongoing argument about what's better, NASCAR or IndyCar. And I mean, it's knockdown drag out. And
right.
I'm hoping that you can help us settle this.
Sure,
as an unbiased observer.
I can help you settle this right now, okay? Real race cars do not have doors. Just that simple.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why, you know, the best of NASCAR want to come here. This is the Great White Buffalo. It's the one everybody wants, right? And Kyle Larson's in the race here. I think he's fifth on the grid. So he might have a shot to do it.
Kyle Larson definitely has a shot.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. And so, I think it's great. Kyle, I've watched him for the last 8 to 10 years, and whatever he gets in, he goes fast and he can win. He can be down at the Chili Bowl in a midget and he wins, and so he can drive anything. And now with his performance this last week with practice and then going in there and qualifying, he's got a real shot at winning this thing. He's with a great team with McLaren, so yeah, they're going to be strong.
Yeah. Can you help people understand the value of the pole position? And a lot of our listeners are not super familiar with racing,
right.
Obviously starting first is nice, but not essential because you won the first time from third row, right?
Sure. Yeah, I started 12th in '92, and the pole, the most winners of the Indy 500 have come from the pole. Okay. It just means that you're the fastest car out there, and it's basically yours to lose. Okay, and so as long as you don't make any mistakes and have good luck during the strategy when the yellows fall and all that kind of stuff, then you've got the fastest car out there. So you definitely want to be the fastest guy. Okay, but anywhere in the first two rows, you've got a shot at winning this race, and basically anywhere in the field. My dad in 1987, I think he started 21st and won the race. Wow! And so you got to be in it to win it, and so anything can happen in the race.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, it's such a special day, such a family atmosphere here, and your lovely wife Norma is here with us now. And she's such a good woman.
Yeah, she is.
And we're really thankful that she helped us connect with you.
No worries.
And I know you got a new book out.
Yep.
Checkered Past.
Yep. It's a checkered past. I'm brutally honest in that book. I've had some challenges off the racetrack with drugs and alcohol and so on, and I'm forward with that. I wanted to tell the truth and be honest about that because I really felt if I could help just one person with that mental illness, and substance use disorder, then it'd be worth me going out there and putting myself out there. And so far it's been really good, and we've had nothing but great things about the book, said about the book. So yeah.
And I ordered the book from Amazon. It's on its way to my house now.
Great.
And I'm wondering, so if people want to get it, they just log into Amazon.
Yep, Amazon has it, or Octane Press is the one that published it. So yeah, either one.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Michael, I know that you've spent a lot of time at this track, and I know that this guy means an awful lot to you. And I think it's just incredible that we get a chance to talk to you today.
Thank you.
It's just I grew up here, going to the race every year, living through those calls and great finishes. But this is a great bookend to that chapter of my life that I get to do this interview with you.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you.
Very great.
You got it.
Yeah.
You got
Thanks
it.
for coming in.
Yeah. Thanks for having us.
What a treat to interview that guy. Just a thrill of a lifetime. His family accounts for 9 of the wins in the 108-year history of this track. His dad won here. His uncle won here. And his uncle was a recognizable voice of the track for a long time on television. And it's just, his greatest, like we were saying before, it's wild that his greatest memories are also in some ways our greatest memories because there's just so much history here that we lived rooting for him on TV.
It's the coolest thing. It's like we're the little show that could. 4 guys we start off with just plug in our mics, little USB mics, and now we have Al Unser Jr. on, live from the Indy 500. Spectacular.
It doesn't get any better than that. Fellas, I think we did it.
I think so. Absolute banger of an episode. Gentlemen, thank you so much, Congressman Jim Banks. Thank you so much, Al Unser Jr., and thank you so much to the Minions. Remember, if you haven't subscribed on YouTube, do that right away. And if you have, like, comment, and subscribe. So until next time, Minions, keep the faith, hold the line, and own the libs. We'll see you on Thursday. Stay ruthless.